Okay, so what we're going to essentially need is an if statement or a shorthand if statement for each value, and we want to check if the length of it doesn't equal 2, and if the length doesn't equal 2 we want to append a number in front. For example, if we were to say if the length of days doesn't equal 2, which it doesn't, we want to add a 0 in front of here so it will show 0, 1 days. It just adds a bit more structure, but obviously at this point it's optional. But let's go ahead and do this anyway. So what I want to do is I want to redefine each variable. So I'm going to say days equals, and then in here is going to be my condition. So I'm going to say string days. We're converting days, which remember at the moment is an integer, to a string, and then we're using dot length to check the length of it. So if this doesn't equal 2, I want to go ahead with a question marks the first option. So if this statement evaluates to true, I want to go ahead and say days is equal to 0 plus days. Else, using a colon, I just want days to equal days, so we're just reassigning the same value. So you may have seen something like this if you've studied other languages, other programming languages. It's just a way to say days. If the length of this, or if this condition evaluates to true, then this value here will be assigned to days, otherwise this value here will be assigned to days. So we can do this for each one. So we've got days, hours equals, and the same thing, string hours dot length doesn't equal 2. If it doesn't equal 2, we append a 0 onto the front of hours, otherwise hours is just set back to hours. And the same with minutes, we say mins equals convert temporarily mins to a string, check the length doesn't equal 2. If the length doesn't equal 2, we have a 0 appended onto mins, otherwise we just have mins. And the same for seconds, we convert seconds to a string. We check the length against -2, and if it is, we just go ahead and pop a 0 in front of seconds, otherwise it just stays as seconds. So quite straightforward here. Let's go ahead and just test this. When I refresh, you can now see that we've got okay, so let's just take a look at what we've done. Oh, okay, sorry, the countdown here as obviously, has it reached? No, it hasn't. Let's just have a look then. Oh right, okay, so I've called this minutes and this seconds, and let's just realign these up. So the wrong variable name's obviously there. We can just go ahead and correct this, so minutes and seconds, and the same with this, minutes and seconds. There we go. And the last one, seconds. Right, okay. So we've obviously got days, hours, minutes and seconds being reassigned depending on their length, and we're adding a trailing or a leading 0 if not. So now you can see that we've got 1 day, which is 0, 1 now, 21 hours, which is 2 characters, so we haven't appended on a 0 to the front, or pre-pended a 0. We've got 2 minutes, which does only have 1 character, so we've pre-pended on a 0 here. And then the seconds work in exactly the same way as when they get down to, like, for example, the number 9, which we'll see in just a moment. We then can see that it will add the 0 on. So that's all that this does. Obviously it's optional depending on how you want to display it, but if you want to sort of keep the same size elements, this is really useful because you're keeping the same size depending on how these change. If, for example, 22 seconds comes down to 9 seconds in a moment, this will shift everything inward if you didn't have the pre-pended zeros, so it just makes it look a lot cleaner as well, and it maintains the same thing. So you can see there it's just changed and it hasn't shifted everything inwards. Okay, so now what we want to focus on is checking whether this date is a number or not, because remember we're converting a string based date here to a timestamp. So what we want to do is if it's not a number, we don't want to display anything. We want to just not do anything. We're not going to give an error. I mean, we could give an error, but we're just going to want to not do anything. So for example, at the moment, if I go to ext.js and just change this to, I'll just type Alex in capitals in the middle of this, when I refresh, you can see that we've got NAN, 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 and NAM for not a number, because this has had a problem converting with Alex into a timestamp. So what we want to do is, before we display everything here, we want to say if not is NAN, so if something inside of this bracket is not a number, which is event date, then we want to display this. So if it's not a number, which means if it is a number, we could even go as far as pulling this up to here, I guess. Yeah, I suppose we could actually. That would probably be the correct way to do this. Let's just go ahead and undo all of that. So I'm going to say, just up here, I'm going to say if not is not a number, event, or settings event. Oh, in actual fact, no, we need to convert the value beforehand to check whether it is a number. So what we'll do is we'll just keep it down here. We use slightly more processing power before we actually work out if it's not a number.